We've been endeavoring to understand the deep meaning of time and place. Time and place. There are several stories, but first there's a simple story. A simple story about a king who was wearied by the responsibilities of taking care of his kingdom and sought to join the company of a great spiritual master in an endeavor to find peace. But when seeking entry to the company of the great master, the master merely delegated him to the task of emptying the night soil. Every morning he must carry the buckets of night soil to the pit to be emptied. After some while, the students of the master felt great pity for the king. Such a degrading task. And so they beseeched the master to allow him to discontinue that job. The master said, "First we must test him." So he instructed one of his students to go when the king was carrying the buckets and knock him so that the night soil was spilt. And this the student did. And when the night soil was spilt, the king drew himself up to his full height and said, "I was a king, and if I were still a king, I would have you beheaded." When he went back to report this to the master said, "He's not yet ready." Some time passed again, and the witnessing by the students of watching every morning the task of carrying these heavy buckets with their putrid contents, again they beseeched the master. The master said, "Go test him again." So again a student went down and bumped him so that the night soil was spilt once again. It could be witnessed that the king was very angry, but he said nothing to the student, merely cleaned up, put the buckets back on his shoulders, taking the path to the pit. Again, when it was reported to the master said, "He's not yet ready." But again, time passed, and again the master was beseeched. "Test him again," said the master. This time the student went down and bumped, so again the night soil was spilt. But this time there was no reaction. The king did not even glance up at the student. He merely bowed his head, cleaned up, and went to the pits. When the student went back to the master and reported, the master said, "Ah, now he's ready. Bring him to me." Then there was a great Sufi master who would often go on a pilgrimage with a group of his students. They would go near and far to places far-flung. One day, when they were out on one such pilgrimage, the master suddenly said, "We must go to the great city of Islamabad." Now this surprised his followers because he had never dictated before where they were to go. merely following a path that was led by themselves from inside. But he was quite adamant about, we must go to the city of Islamabad. So they took the road, and just on the outskirts of the city there were lots of vendors, as you often find on the side of the road, of a main road going into the city gates. And when they came to one such vendor, he was selling kebabs, the little meatballs on skewers. And the master said, I just feel like a meatball. But all his students were greatly shocked because the master didn't eat meat. So they stood back on the side of the road while the master went over to the kebab seller. And the kebab seller made the kebab and handed it to the master. And the master brought up the stick of meatballs to his mouth and took a bite. And just as he took that bite, the kebab seller fell down into a swoon, fainting at his feet. When the kebab seller came to, the master took him by the hand and took him over to his group of followers and said, this is my successor, the one who will follow in my footsteps. And the kebab seller joined the throng of the master, and they proceeded into this great city of Islamabad. And then there was a man by the name of Hassan. From the very earliest age, Hassan had a wish, a longing, a desire to meet the greatest teacher of the age. So as soon as he was able, he set out on his quest, going from place to place. Everywhere he went asking, where can I find the teacher of the age? He saw soothsayers, he saw fortune tellers, he asked everyone. And then one day, asking a particular soothsayer, he was told, go to the city of Bukhara. There you will find him. His name is Hussein bin Ismail. Hassan was so excited. He set out immediately for Bukhara. And when he arrived there, with the throngs of people that gathered in such a great city, he asked everyone, where can I find Hussein bin Ismail? Finally, someone pointed to a group of schoolboys standing outside the doorway of an academy. And they said, there he is, pointing out a particular boy in that group. So Hassan was very surprised, but he went over to that group and went to that boy and he said, are you Hussein bin Ismail? And the boy replied, yes. Hassan said, are you the greatest teacher of the age? And the boy looked at Hassan and said, this is not the time nor the place. I am not yet ready to answer your question. Hassan was completely shattered by this. All desire for a quest left him. So he became an ordinary man. He became a merchant. He married. He traversed the places he'd been before in his quest, but now as a trader. And 30 years passed. One day, when Hassan was visiting another great city, Samarkand, as he was walking down the road, a group coming the other way, in the midst of which there was a man with a shining countenance, radiant eyes, shining beard. And this man approached Hassan face to face, and he said, "Hassan, 30 years ago you asked me the question. Now I am ready to give you the answer, for it is now the time and the place." And taking Hassan's hand, he guided him into the midst of the group of his great teaching school. Time and place. What is its deep meaning for us? As these stories unfold, what is the deep meaning of time and place? Thank you.